What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Big Stu, Scott Stewart, or Professor Stewart, depending on how you know me. And we are back with another amazing episode of Dope People. Dope People. Look, this is the place where we talk to dope people doing dope things, particularly in the space of education. Everybody ain't invited to this space. You really got to be about something to be in here. Our guest tonight, Principal Captain Kirk, Jamilah Kirk. She's going to explain how that comes about. I met her through my OSG family, my new OSG family, off school grounds. Principal Kirk, welcome to Dope People.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Absolutely. But let me introduce you to the people. Okay. Miss Jamilah A. Hud-Kirk, right? Is currently serving. Yep. It's almost sound like she's serving. Well, if you've been in a classroom, if you worked in education, it feels like you served time. She's serving her 15th year, but not in that system, y'all.
Not in that system.
She's right. Not in that system. She's serving her 15th year as an elementary school principal. Yeah. 15 years as an elementary school principal. That's unheard of today. Yeah. At Fountain Elementary in Forest Park, Georgia. Principal Captain Kirk is an accomplished teacher, principal, and you'll hear firsthand speaker, and now author, because you got to write something.
Right.
He has also over 25 years experience, y'all, in urban and rural education as a teacher, a school improvement specialist, an assistant principal, and a principal at the elementary school, middle school, and district levels. Not only in Georgia, y'all, she's out here, Alabama and Texas, getting her HBCU education on. She has a bachelor's degree in elementary education, early childhood education from the Tuskegee University. Right? Shout out to the HBCUs.
Shout out.
She has a master's degree in special ed from the Auburn University. And look, and educational leadership from I'm having fun with it tonight.
I know you're having a lot of fun.
The University of Texas at Austin.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. Principal Captain Kirk is a speaker and founder of PCK Consulting, LLC. She considers her greatest accomplishments, which she should, to be a wife of 20 years and mother to 4 boys and a girl. She sounds like me, ranging from 26 years old to 3 years old. Shout out to you. Yeah. My oldest is 23, and then I got my 2-year-olds. I understand.
You understand.
Absolutely. Being
keeps us young.
Hey, no judgment here. Okay. Shout out to you. Principal Captain Kirk is one of the most challenging and rewarding accomplishments, yet she's recently added one more why to her plate. Why? To empower other female leaders to work on the work while creating that work-life balance for themselves, right? I know all about that. Mm-hmm. Realizing that there's so much to learn from my own experience and those of dynamic female leaders, Principal Captain Kirk has recently created a blog and other social media platforms that are reflective of those of other dynamic female leaders, right?
Yep.
It is the desire of Principal Kirk, Captain Kirk, and hope that other leaders will share those similar experiences of work-life balance will have a safe, honest platform in which to learn from and express their own personal journeys on how they manage to find harmony or not between their professional and personal lives. Shout out to Mrs. Principal Jamilah A. Hud-Kirk. Welcome to Dope People.
Thank
goes crazy.
Hey, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was I like that. I like hearing that. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Now
I try.
yeah, well, not only do you try, you did.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Now,
stand on shoulders. I definitely stand on shoulders.
absolutely, absolutely. You and I don't know each other. Sounds
Right.
like we've been friends for a lifetime,
It does.
but we don't know each other. We just met. We just met a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely.
In in the virtual space.
Absolutely.
Through Zoom.
Through Zoom.
A bunch of people I've never seen in my life before. And that sounds really, really good, as we would say, coming from the South Side of Chicago. That sounds good on paper, but that don't mean I know you.
Absolutely.
So I'm not here to set you up. I'm not going to catch you up. There will be none of that funny business. I'm not trying to trip you up, but we want to know a little bit more about you. Are you open to a friendly game of this or that?
Sure. I like games.
Are you familiar with this or that?
I'm a little familiar with this or that.
All right. All right. Well, let's
Let's
into
go.
a friendly
Okay, let's go.
game of this or that. So you know how it goes. I give you two choices. You pick one or the other.
Got it.
All right, here we go. Bunny or squirrel?
Say one more time.
Bunny, rabbit, bunny, or squirrel?
Oh, bunny.
Them squirrels, something else, ain't it?
Yeah, I can't stand them. They get on my nerves. I need them off my roof, off my deck.
Man.
Yeah, the squirrels and I aren't getting along right now. They're so disrespectful.
Unbelievable. Cat or dog?
Dog. I can't do the cats. You don't remember that movie when we were young? It was a long time ago, and the cat took the little girl's breath when she was asleep.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and I had a friend in high school that had a cat, and every time we spent the night up at her house, I had to sleep with the covers over my head because I was afraid the cat would come. Yeah, nope, dog. Dog.
All day. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Principal. No, that's not the one. Pancakes or waffles?
Oh, probably pancakes. I'm a sucker for a really good buttermilk pancake. I really am. I like pancakes.
Okay. All right. Pancakes it is.
Mm-hmm.
Markers or crayons?
I think crayons.
Okay.
Yeah. Crayons. Markers tend to show up in different places around my home. So yeah, crayons.
Text or call?
Oh, that is a good one. Probably lately it has been call. I like the human connection. Yeah.
Here's another good one. I think you might appreciate this one. Library or museum?
Museum.
Wow. Okay. We're getting to learn you a little bit more. We're coming to the the apex of this right here. Love or money?
Love.
Wow.
Yeah.
Book or movie?
Movie. Yeah, I'm a visual learner. Movies.
Night on the town or quiet evening at home?
Quiet evening at home.
Wonder Woman or Catwoman?
Wonder Woman. I used to pretend that I was Wonder Woman. Everything, the jump rope around the waist. Yeah, I was Wonder Woman.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The old school Wonder Woman that,
Yeah. Linda Carter, I think is her
yes,
name, right?
Linda Carter was my girl.
There you go. All right, let's keep going. We got a few more before we dig in. We're learning who you are. Okay. White meat or dark meat?
Oh, it depends on how it's made, because it depends. Okay, right now I would say white meat because it's leaner, but when it's lemon pepper wings, probably dark meat, but I would say white meat.
Okay. All right. Here we go. We're about to dig in. It's about to get serious. It's about to get real.
Uh-oh.
It's about to get real. Teachers or parents?
Teachers.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. teachers or principals?
Ooh, teachers or principals? Teachers.
Students or parents?
Students.
Very interesting. Unions or non-unions?
You know, we don't have a union in Georgia.
Y'all have charter?
We have charter schools, but no, we don't have
Public education and parochial, public and private.
public and private. Yeah. We
Public and
we don't have any union.
All right, I got one. Let's scratch that one. I'll scratch that.
Okay.
I'll edit that one out. Here's
Okay.
one for you then.
Okay.
HBCU
Oh,
or PWI?
HBCU all day, every day. TU, you know, we
Okay.
ball and parlay. That's a Tuskegee way.
Oh wow, you going in? Okay, you just like went all the way there.
Hey, my
Okay,
son is
feel
at
that.
Howard. My husband went to Alabama A&M as well. So yes,
Wow.
HBCU. My siblings went to Clark. My brother-in-law went to Morehouse. My other brother-in-law went to Howard. We're an HBCU family. Absolutely.
I'm HBCU. I went to Southern Baton Rouge.
Hey.
Southern University. I'm part of the swag. So I'm here.
All right. That's why we
Right.
get along so well.
Yeah. Final two questions.
Yes.
Final two questions. All right. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Because this one is, look.
Uh-oh. It's getting deep.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Cake or ice cream?
Ooh.
Want the cake or you want the ice cream? Can you have
I
both?
think I don't know, I'm a sucker for both, but I'm going to say cake because my great grandmother used to make a banging sour cream pound cake. So I'm going to say cake.
All right. Final question.
Okay.
Traditional, when you think about the classroom, think about the classroom.
Okay.
Traditional education or e-learning?
Blended.
Wow.
Yeah, blended.
Talk about that a little bit, Ms. McCurry.
You know, whether we want to face it or not, we're in a time where education is moving quite rapidly, and we no longer can stick to one way of educating our students. We have to look at them more as customers, look at them more as and identify what their learning needs are. And what we're finding, or what I'm finding, is that some students, although obviously we want it to be in the school face to face, some students really thrived online. And so if it's good for, adults, like we tend to, when we look at our secondary, master's or doctoral, we're looking at advanced degrees, some of us want to just be face to face. Some of us want a blended opportunity. Some of us want to just only be online. And I think we just need to really meet the needs of the learners. So it is not for everyone, but that's also knowing your students and knowing your scholars. So I don't think we could turn back time and say, okay, pandemic is over, so we're not doing anything online. We can no longer do that, especially because the way that the world is changing and how careers are evolving. Our students need to have access to technology and be able to learn in different ways. Even the workforce is different. You have some who are face-to-face, you have some that work from home and work online. And so we need to be able to match and to align with what the world is wanting and looking for our future leaders and future, career holders. So I think it needs to be a blended opportunity for students and, as well as for the adults.
Your participation in this with that. Excellent participant.
Thank you.
Great responses. I like your energy and your flow. So before we go into, we've heard your professional introduction.
Yes.
You amused us with a round of this or that. The 600-pound gorilla that's in the room is, how did you get the name Principal Captain Kirk? What
You
is
know what?
that all about? Please
You know,
explain.
you know what? I don't even know where it started. I think people, because my last name, my married name is Kirk, and people just started saying Captain Kirk. And so when I started to evolve or insert myself in social media, because I have my personal where I use my name, but then for my professional, I wanted something that would be catchy, to be honest with you. I knew that I wanted something that would, hold itself and as a brand. So I was like, you know what? I'll adopt Principal Captain Kirk. That's what my, teachers call me sometimes. So why not just adopt it? And so that's how Principal Captain Kirk evolved or started. It was just really just having fun.
Shout out to whoever planted that seed in your head. I don't know if it was your third grade teacher, a mentor, somebody at the church. Somebody planted it early. When I saw your name, obviously, look, it's Brandon is everything. I was like, Principal Captain Kirk, just click on the profile. Like, it's
Absolutely.
so dope. It's your name. You're a principal. You're in charge. Shout out to you for embracing it and not being afraid of it. It works.
And I wanted to be fun. I think sometimes people don't see leaders or principals as having fun or being fun. And so I wanted to have a play on, this is kind of who I am. I'm a serious leader. I'm a servant leader, but I also like to have fun. So I don't take everything seriously. So I thought it worked.
I'm sorry. It's working for you if you've been a principal for 15
Absolutely.
years in 2022.
Yeah.
Who's doing that?
Yeah.
Is that how y'all rolling down in Georgia?
Yeah. And let me correct, because it's 15 years total in my district, and I apologize for that. But this is my 12th year, which is still and at the same school. So that's how we roll. When you do your job and you do your work, it's rewarding. It's very rewarding.
That's great. Take us back.
Okay.
So my first question is, like, where are you from? Like, where are you from, Georgia? Like, where are you from?
Interestingly, what up, though? I'm actually from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, the D is in
right up the street from you. Yes. I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, I love Detroit. I love Detroit so much. Shout out to the Ashbury
That's where I'm
School
from.
Craft up in Detroit. Shout out to everybody off
Hey, I lived up between Grand River and Schoolcraft.
Come on.
Yes.
Come on. Shout out to all my Detroit family, y'all. Love y'all.
Yes. Yeah, so my family's up there too.
How did you wind up in Georgia? And when, like, how long were you in Detroit, and when did you wind up in Detroit?
So my family moved to Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, in the December of my 7th grade year. My father's family is from Columbus. And so during a time when that's maybe the early 80s, I guess, or so, middle 80s, there's a lot going on in Detroit. And so our parents decided that they wanted to move us south and be closer to our southern roots, if you will, and also have a little bit more opportunity. I think they were also wanted to ensure that as we got older in middle school and high school, that we were in areas where we could, thrive. There was a fear of, there was a lot going on in schools and just in Detroit in general, a lot was happening, increasing crime. And Detroit has really great things that are going on in Detroit. And even during that time, but it was a time that my parents decided they wanted to move south and give us that experience and then get to know our southern roots and our southern family. So we moved down here. And at the time when we first moved down here, my dad also started teaching at Tuskegee University. So he was a professor at Tuskegee University. And so from there, I went on to middle school and then, of course, high school, and graduated and decided that I also wanted to attend the Tuskegee University. And at that time, I decided I wanted to be in education. I knew I don't, it was funny because what I put on my application was computer science. It wasn't education, but the first day that I stepped on campus, I changed my major to education, which was interesting because I always played school. I'm the oldest of 5. So I have 5 siblings. Well, excuse me, 4 of us. I'm the oldest of 5. And I had a passion. My dad at the time was teaching, but he also had a childcare center. So I spent a lot of time at the child care center in the summer times or after school. And I just got the bug for wanting to really educate other children. And my dad was very involved in the community. Both my parents, my mom was a foster care director, so she worked very closely in the social work department. Both of my parents, and so it was just something that has always been instilled in me from the very beginning, that education, some form or fashion, I would be involved with education. So that's pretty much where I'm from. And then we moved to Columbus, Georgia, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's phenomenal. That's awesome. So when you think about you between sixth grade and middle school, that's my focus. I focus on young people. As the founder and CEO of Genius Lab, our focus is on the middle school to high school range, where I had some really unique experiences as a student.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of student were you in that 6th through 12th grade? And did you always know that you wanted to be in education? I guess no, because you said you started off.
Yeah. And it wasn't even
student?
computer science was just on there. I wasn't even all into computers. It's interesting that I would say I would be an average to above average student in terms of grades. I was involved I was a cheerleader in school. I actually had the privilege of attending a middle school, or at the time there was a junior high school in Columbus that was not far from my home. So I was able to walk to school, which was different, because in Detroit, because my schools weren't close in proximity, we would travel, in cars. So being able to walk through the neighborhood and get to my school, that was different. And at the time, the principal was my father's former teacher. And so one of the things that I learned, and then my aunt was the art teacher. So what I learned is that a lot of the teachers at my school knew my father, which is one of the perks, or that my dad really relied on, was being in a community where you grow up and everyone knows who you are, pretty much. And so it's a village mentality, take care of the village. And so that's something that he had growing up, and he wanted us to have the same type of experience. And so I was fortunate to be surrounded by individuals who looked out for me. And even if they didn't know my dad, it was that type of culture and climate in the school. So yeah, once I got to junior high, I was that student that, I studied. I didn't run the streets or anything like that. I was that typical kid that would play in the neighborhood with her neighborhood friends and hang out on the green box till the street lights came on, and then you knew it was time to go home, or play kickball in the front yard. So I had a really good childhood. I had a childhood, my parents were very intentional in making sure that we had that type of childhood, that we were protected and safe, and that we would not grow up too fast. And I think that, again, that's another reason why they moved us south.
Now, I gotta ask you this question. This might feel like a little catch-up question, but it'll be fun. Like,
okay.
Catch you up. Are you telling me that you didn't come down to Columbus, Georgia with a little Detroit chip on your shoulder? You were able to avoid? I can't imagine coming from Chicago or Detroit I'm going down there like I'm the boss. You didn't do that. You went down there. You was cool,
didn't.
huh?
I was cool.
Wow.
You have to remember, like, even before we moved to Columbus, the setting, I went to Nataka Schoolhouse of Detroit, shout out to them, which was an Afrocentric charter school type school. Then I went to Burton International School.
Okay.
And I just, the environment that I grew up in, again, my parents were very involved, and especially my dad in the civil rights movement, Black Panther, very, very involved in the community and giving back to the community. So a lot of what was instilled in us as children was that we represented our family. Like when you left the house, you represent the hoods. So we, there was no room for going out and acting foolish. I mean, it just wasn't. And not to mention, again, you're in the South, so everybody knows your parents. So, but before you get home, they'll know something's gone down. So I had a wonderful childhood. I had great friends, and some friends I still keep to this day.
Are they the hoods? Are your
What my
parents the
friends?
Huds? Your parents.
Yeah, so Hood is
Good.
Hud is my last name. It's pronounced
Good.
Hood. It's Arabic for Hood, but there are
Okay. Good.
hoods. Yeah,
Okay.
there are hoods in Georgia as well on my father's side.
But
Yes.
your mom and dad, they were Mr. and Mrs. Hood.
Yes, my mom and dad are Mr. and Mrs. Hood. That is
Shout
correct.
out to Mr. and Mrs. Hood for raising such an amazing individual who didn't go down with a chip on her shoulder. Shout out to y'all for instilling that humility in your child, because I missed that memo. Oh my goodness. When
we were very involved. We were involved in sports and arts, golf, basketball, cheerleading, track and field.
That's great.
Yeah, so we were, they kept us busy. There were no idle minds in our home.
Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Hood. Hey, listen, I have another question for you.
Yes.
What, in your opinion, is like working well for you today in education? As an educational leader, you're a principal of a school. What are you like most proud about? What's like working for you as an educational leader today?
For me personally, what's really working well for me is my culture and climate of my school. I worked really, really hard on building relationships with my teachers, which is why when you ask those questions, I kept going back to teachers, because they're in the trenches and I know it makes a difference. And in order for them to be successful, I have to support them. But I also am very intentional about the relationships that not only that I make, but also that they make them together. Students to students, teachers to students, teachers to parents, myself to parents and students and teachers. And so what I'm most proud of is that culture and climate, because these days there's so many adversities that are happening and challenges, coming out of a pandemic or in the middle of a pandemic, however your perspective is. And if you don't have relationship building in your school with your staff and with your students and with your parents, you can potentially lose them. And so if you didn't have a strong culture and climate prior to the pandemic, you probably experienced a lot of struggling, such as keeping students engaged online, helping parents support their child at home. So a lot of things, and I tell people this pandemic really is like showed our skirt, our slip was showing. So things that were not necessarily working, you were able to see more closely when the pandemic came out. So I'm most proud of that culture and climate, because although it's been challenging, we've been able to maintain a positive culture and climate, a climate in which everyone feels valued and there's relationship building, and that we're pouring, because it's no longer just educating children. We've become the counselors, the parents. In many cases, we've done we provide food to families, clothing, supplies. We do weekend bags every weekend for our family. So we're in a position now where we're trying to fill their cups so that they can come to school ready to learn. And so what we're learning is that we can no longer just sit back and say, well, they can just sit in front of us or expect to even have their attention. We have to do some things intentionally to make sure that our students are okay.
Wow. Great answer. Very insightful. I learned something from you in that the culture and climate probably has a lot to do with whether or not you lost students and at what rate during the height of the pandemic. And I really like how you added that depending on your perspective verbiage. That's really good to help us keep that mental note of where we sit on the tandem of perspective in relationship to everything that's going on. Glass half full, glass half empty. So it says a lot. That's really, really interesting. Principal Captain Kirk, what is keeping you up at night? What has you scratching your head and really frustrated, if anything at all? But what's bothering you about education today?
I think what bothers me the most, there's a couple things. One thing that keeps me up at night is not knowing whether or not my families and my staff are okay. This pandemic and the last couple years has really taken a toll on a lot of our children, and a lot of our adults. These are considered traumatic experiences. And so I oftentimes wonder, are we as educators, as schools, as organizations fully equipped to meet those needs of not only our students and families, but our staff, our teachers, and the individuals, our essential workers, if you will, those who are in front of those students. Are we fully equipped? Are we providing them with the best support, the social emotional support, the professional support? As a leader, the reality is you still have state assessments, right? You still have accountability. But oftentimes you're faced with the challenge of, okay, I know I have this accountability, but I have these teachers over here really struggling. I have these teachers who are really, and so at some point you have to find a happy medium, how you can support them, but still hold everyone accountable and still have high expectations, but be empathetic to what people are going through. So that's one thing that keeps me up at night. And then, people are tired. People are tired. And I know that the last couple of years pushed us a little further or a little faster into a space, like we talked about, the technology, the e-learning or the hybrid learning took us a little bit faster. We had a lot of adults and teachers and staff members who were not technology savvy. And then all of a sudden you woke up the next day and you had to be.
Wow.
And so that is something that, I don't know necessarily if that keeps me up at night, but just making what keeps me up, or I always have to be reflective of, is, am I doing enough? Am I supporting the right way? Because oftentimes we can go in, we're thinking we're supporting, and, but we may not be doing it the right way. Wow. Am I addressing the love language or the PD language, if you will? So, that's something that keeps me up at night, to be honest with you, just whether or not I am doing enough for my families and my staff.
You're a different kind of leader to even mention love languages in the same sense of talking about leading adults, acknowledging that we as adults still do have our love language. It's a very, very real thing, and you're taking the steps to address it and acknowledge that it's a thing. I think it's transformative.
Yeah.
That's the right word.
Yeah. And then my fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
My colleagues as well, because the truth be told, the administrators are struggling as well. This is tough work. This is tough work.
Imagine what you all.
Yeah.
Like, this is a question that's not even like, are you all even focused on teaching these kids right now? And like our kids, I feel so bad for the kids. Because you can't, how can you, with all this going on? Look, I'm in Chicago. Our teacher just did a work stoppage for 2 weeks. They like, no. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And now they didn't flip a class they didn't flip schools for 2 weeks. They did a work stoppage. So kids got nothing.
Right.
Nope. And if they wanted to, you can't get it here. My heart goes out to you, all of you, school leaders, superintendents, principals, network chiefs, whatever you're called. Cannot imagine. But at the same time, and with your teachers struggling too, I just feel like these kids are they've gotten the short end of the stick this school.
They're caught in the middle. They really are.
Caught in the middle. Bad divorce. If you know.
Yeah.
So having said that, take us to the point of some optimism. What do you imagine? It's kind of a twofold question. You can attack it however you want, but like, what do you imagine schools of the future should be? And what are we preparing these young people for anyway? Like, what are we preparing them for these days? And what should that school delivery system, what does that look like to you 20 years from now?
It's interesting that you say that, because I posed this same question to my staff this summer, at the beginning of the year, and we did an activity where I showed them this video of I forgot the person's name. They were doing a commencement speech at Spelman, I believe it was, and she was going around the AU Center and asking the question, "What do you think schools look like in Wakanda?" When you think about the movie and how rich in culture and history and everything that was going on in Wakanda, they didn't just pop out that way. What do you think schools look like? And how does that relate to what the work that we do? Um, I think one of the things we call the backward design model, typically when we say, okay, look at the end in mind in order to plan for the future, I think we need to look at the end in mind. When we look at the careers that are coming out, and where we want our scholars to be, what is necessary for us to get them there? I think there needs to be a shift from just looking at high school and middle school and looking all the way down to elementary, because our students are they're very wise. They are exposed to a lot. So the more that we can pour into them now as elementary, in the primary and elementary, same that way we do with our own children in our own homes. We don't wait in our own homes to have conversations with our children in middle and high school about what they want to do or the types of careers. So we should carry that same energy into our schools. And so when we look at the technology that's happening in the world, when we look at some of the careers that will no longer be available 20 years down the line, what does that mean for our students? I have OSG brother, Principal Rock, cryptocurrency. Yes, that needs to be in schools. STEM and STEAM, yes, that needs to be in schools. Technology, coding needs to be in schools. Art needs to be in schools. So all computer science needs to be in schools. All of these things that we want our students to have the same opportunity and afford it to them, they need to be in schools, because we can no longer wait on someone to give it to us. So as school leaders, we have to be creative thinkers, critical thinkers. We have to think outside the box and identify what types of programs and offerings we can even provide to our students. Even now, one of the things in Georgia, there's they've a couple years ago, they said by 24, 25, all middle and high schools must offer computer science. And I remember reading that and attempting to, because we earn additional funding for positions, and I wanted to get a computer science teacher. And I was asked, well, why do you want to put a computer science in elementary? I said, because if it's going to be required in 24, 25 in middle and high school, why would I wait? Why would I wait until middle and high school for my students? If they decide to, there's so many electives, why not offer to them now in that experience? We did coding pre-pandemic. We were doing coding with our students. We were doing gardening with our students. How can we make them self-sufficient? Because what if we wake up one day, just like now, I'm sure you see when we go into the grocery stores, they're hardly stocked. Where's the food? But if something were to happen, do we know how to grow our own food? Have we even taught our students how to do that? So I think we as leaders have to expect and give our teachers, our staff members the experience and the opportunity to be out, to think differently about how their classrooms look. Again, I tell my staff members all the time, my teachers all the time, our students are our customers. The same way if you were going to an establishment, how would you want to be taken care of? We can no longer expect our students to just come sit in front of us just because they're students. How are you going to engage them in the process? How are you going to connect their learning to something that's real world so that they can apply that? And so I just think, as we move closer to creating a world where what we want to see for our students, it has to start in school. Back in the day, schools were the hub of everything, of the community. Whether it was the civil rights movement, the meetings were held there. If it was, alumni coming back to the schools, they would come back and have their reunions. We have to get back to a place where schools are important and we are educating our students and our scholars and our parents and providing them, equipping them with the necessary thing. If it means having classes for your parents on how to fix their credit scores, or how we've done in the past where we've offered, job fairs or community fairs, providing food, pantry, whatever it takes to really fulfill those needs. We should be doing that for our students. And I know some people may say, you know what, we do everything already. And that may be a true statement for some. And then for some, you may not be doing enough. But what's the alternative? To have students come to you hungry and then they act out and you want to send them home, and instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with them? What's the alternative? To have parents to keep coming to your school and upset or cursing you out, and still, instead of trying to figure out what's really going on and find out the root is, well, they lost their job or they're struggling themselves. What's the alternative? If the student is the center of what we're trying to do, then how do we address those needs of those students? And I know that we can't do everything for everyone. And I'm in the business of creating opportunities for people to be self-sufficient. I really am. And I do understand that we can't always keep giving, but I do know that we have to educate and empower people. I'm in the business of empowering. I don't just give either, but I do believe that we should empower people and provide opportunities.
That's absolutely phenomenal. Everything you said is spot on. I go back to your statement about the give and the empowering. I think what has sustained me over the years with that group and as an educational leader as well is recognizing that my give is purely that, because I'm in the seed planting business. I'm not even expecting the harvest to
Absolutely.
come for 20 years. That's
Absolutely.
not even, so I'm not mad that they didn't get it right now. I'm not upset that the scores weren't, because I'm a product of that.
Mm-hmm.
Forget y'all teachers. I don't care about this test because we don't have a connection. So you're more concerned about this test than me. So I'm not going to give you, because you're not feeding me. You're not planting. That was my personal experience.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the lack of intelligence.
Right.
It had nothing to do with an inability to read, write, count, or articulate, or to think critically. And so if we remain in that space as educational leaders, as though, look, our job is to plant the seed, so when they come up against something, they have a frame of reference to point back to that puts them in the right direction. So they have something to build. That's absolutely.
Yeah, put tools in their toolbox. Give them tools to put in their toolbox.
Because no matter, I don't care if you were the student who you participated in everything, you were class president, you got straight A's, you have perfect attendance, life is still gonna hand you a handful.
Absolutely.
And you have to figure out how to navigate that space. Otherwise, none of it matters, right?
Right.
So I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
It is time for us to wrap this conversation. It feels like we've been talking for 5 minutes. To me, it does anyway. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you kind of want to share, maybe a little bit about PCK or what you got coming up? Any important thoughts that you want to get off before we
I think, you covered a lot in the beginning. I do have recently launched my PCK Consulting LLC, and that is a company that I launched to really address, diverse women who aspire to be leaders, who are current leaders. And, my focus recently has been on self-care for leaders, because I realized during the pandemic that although we were so busy trying to make sure that everyone else was okay, we were struggling in silence. And so that was really important to me, to make sure that these, women or just leaders in general had a space where they could share. There's a saying sometimes that is lonely at the top in leadership, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can surround yourself with other leaders who are going through similar things, and who have, overcome those challenges. I think it's just a matter of connecting with the right people. And you mentioned earlier about OSG off school grounds, and that's what it provided for me was, in addition to my colleagues in my own district, connecting with other principals who are, seeing some of the same struggles and getting some ideas from each other, having a sit down and saying, okay, this is what we see. How can we combat this? This is what you've already figured it out. Tell me what you've done. And that's what it's really about, reaching beyond your school, reaching beyond your state, which is what I have done. And so that has served me well as a school leader, professionally and personally. Writing the Leading with Balance book, I have an Amazon best-selling book, Leading with Balance, that came out last summer, that I wrote with 4 other women of color in my district, principals with varying different degrees, backgrounds, and experiences, and number of years experience as in the principalship. But we just wanted to share our story of how the challenges in our journey in leadership, and how that has impacted us not only personally but professionally. And so I'm really proud about that. And then you also mentioned the blog, principalcaptainkirk.com. And again, that's a platform where we talk all things education, all things leadership, whether it's cultural, competency, if it's self-care, if it's, working with parents, if it's, how to land that job in your first principalship, whatever that may be. It was developed to be a space where, principals or leaders can feel comfortable and safe in sharing their thoughts, and really tapping to those individuals who typically wouldn't see themselves as writers. We all have a voice, we all have a journey inside of us. And I think we just have to really start sharing it more so that people realize that they're not in this work alone. And so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, again, the main thing for me, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a school leader, educational consultant, and who's passionate about helping women and from diverse backgrounds who aspire to serve and currently serving in school leadership roles. And I do this through my Principal Captain Kirk leadership blog and my PCK Consulting and the Leading with Balance book. And you can follow me on at principalcaptainkirk.com on all social media platforms, and principalcaptainkirk.com. And I look forward to, working with you, Scott, in the future.
Absolutely. And the link to every place imaginable to get with Principal Captain Kirk will be made available in the show notes, especially the link to buy her book. Give us the title of that book again.
Yes, it's Leading with Balance.
Come on, y'all. Go cop that book. I want you to go cop the book, even just to put on your bookshelf.
Absolutely.
Right?
Give it to a friend.
Give it to a friend. Give it to a friend. But I'm absolutely sure, after having this conversation with Principal Captain Kirk, that there is some value in that book. I'm willing to bet the farm.
Yeah.
On that statement.
Even if you're not a leader, it's touched people who are not even leaders. And so I do encourage you, if you're just a woman, or even men, it's touched. I've gotten, emails from men and men who are leaders, and the impact that the book has had on them, because it's about leadership. It's about balance. And again, we have to continue to pour into ourselves in order for us to really be able to show up for other people. If our cup is not full, we can't fill the cup of others.
That's right. That's right.
So that's really what it's about.
There is so much more that we could explore.
Yes.
I did that on purpose because that's like my proof. I've been in the booth too. But there's so much more that we could explore together. I look forward to having continued conversation with you and getting to know you more. You are officially dope stamped by Dope People Podcast. You are a friend of the family. You are family. Principal Captain Kirk, thank you for gracing us with your presence on Dope People. Dope People.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. I appreciate you.
I do appreciate you. And for all of you out there listening and or watching, this is your man, Big Stu, Scott Stewart, or Professor Stewart. It really depends on how you know me. You already know what it is. Until next time, peace.